First speaker is Paddy, Dewan, a paediatric urologist who, while training in Europe, developed an understanding of the importance of medical history and volunteer work in developing countries, having now taught through 115 country visits. He has a commitment to promoting the quality agenda research and effective audit. In 2003, he made a public statement that caused an unintended career shift, that's a euphemism, and has led to being determined to be part of the solution to this dysfunction of healthcare administration and regulation. We all know him very well, we admire him, and it's a great honour to introduce you, Paddy. Thank you very much.
One of the problems about organising a meeting is that you have to put somebody first on the program, so the easiest thing was to put myself so I didn't have to worry about upsetting people. But no, it's a pleasure to follow on the presentation by Nick, because clearly what he's talking about is let's get the problems out there so we can look for the solutions. So I'm presenting solutions at the end of my presentation, but letting you know why I've come to understand the need for those solutions. And one of the things I've learnt is the term attribution error. Attribution error was a term that I learnt from Evelyn Field, who's an expert in bullying, and she was talking to me about my experience. I was trying to learn from her, and she told me about attribution error is when the bullied person is called the bully. But having done a little bit more research, I've actually found it's a little bit more complicated than that. In reading the work by Duffy and Sperry, who looked at overcoming mobbing, which interestingly is the Swedish word for bullying, I've found from Lena, who's helping with a conference today, that there's a lot you can learn by going to literature that's outside your own specialty. And fundamental attribution error is the term that is on the internet rather than just attribution error. And it's the tendency to overemphasise personality-based explanation in others while underemphasising the importance of situational and organisational influences. So the first part, the tendency to overemphasise personality-based explanations in others is like, you crazy driver! And the rest of it, when you're forgetting about the organisational situational influences, who is speeding because he's taking his pregnant wife to the hospital. So he's not a crazy driver, he's a loving partner of somebody who needs to get to the hospital. So it's looking at things from a different perspective. So that's really helpful. When you look at attribution error in the mobbing circumstance, when somebody becomes the victim of workplace mobbing and loses their job, the fundamental attribution error leads people to explain what happens by looking at the individual, not by looking at the organisation. And that's when you have mobbing, with all the terms that might go with it, where you have this oppressive scenario, which many in the room will be familiar with. You become the target of the concern because there is an institutional problem where effectively you're the scapegoat. And that happened to me after I reported bullying at the Children's Hospital here in Melbourne, where it is an institution I have great respect for, and I feel I'm the most dedicated staff member they've ever had. I reported multiple concerns about management of patients, and then I took the public statement of reporting a case to the coroner that hadn't been reported to the coroner appropriately. The outcome was the sham review that we'll hear about in the next presentation of the bullying and of the clinical concerns. The bullying was reviewed by 2 of the board members who had no knowledge or experience of bullying. And then my contract was ended because I was not a team player.
They use that word for me.
I then reported 97 cases to the medical board looking at, concerns of a collective behaviour of professionalism and of clinical care. And then I reported the behaviour of some of the fellows to the College of Surgeons. That's when a couple of the terms on this slide says disrespectful accusations started. That's when the bullying really started, because I was not going to be rolled over by having simply lost my job. The episodes from the regulator. Of the 97 cases, I was asked by the CEO of the medical board, well, you'll have to get in touch with the family. I said, I don't know some of these families. I'll give them a call. So I had been given permission to phone them. I was then found guilty of unprofessional conduct for having made the call. Not any of the content, It was having made the call, and then the CEO refused to have recorded the fact that it was through a discussion with him that I'd ended up making the call. Episode 2 was when two antagonistic competitors reported a reasonable outcome. There was a demeaning formal hearing, public belittlement through the press, and I was found not guilty. The next, a complaint from a doctor with a conflict of interest, it's very complicated, but it was a conflict of interest, was notified 2 years after the surgery of a case who had no complication. 4 court hearings over 6 years. The whole process ended 8 years after the operation, and there were only token sanctions. They didn't get me, but I'd committed career assassination because I insisted that I was innocent. And I think some in the room will know that feeling. So this was the sequence of events that occurred, where I was ordered to have retraining in 2009. VCAT, bless their cotton socks, decided I should be suspended on appeal. The Supreme Court said that was the 13th chime of the crazy clock, and then must be audited. Don't we all have to do audit? And if not, why not? That was the punishment. The process was the punishment. The 4th episode was when it looked like I wasn't going to be deregistered. So it ended in December 2012. In August of 2012, there was a notification that went to the Immediate Actions Committee. The Immediate Actions Committee got angry with the father for coming to represent his view that I'd done the right thing and I'd only recommended surgery. The surgery has since been performed by another surgeon. The family complained about the reporting surgeon with no action by APRA. And the case was dropped after David O'Brien, sitting here in the front, mentioned my name in a Legislative Council inquiry the next day. The case was dropped 16 months after it all started because there were findings against me on a previous matter. Absolute rubbish. But the mobbing, the bullying didn't stop there. Contracts ended. The Children's Hospital, Western Private, Sunshine, Cabrini, St John of God. And then they gave the paediatric surgical contract in Geelong to the Royal Children's Hospital through another trumped-up process. The mobbing, the bullying will get you because you haven't been a team player.
That's the word.
So attribution error, the being bullied when you are accused of being the bully when you are the one being bullied. That happened through the college on 3 occasions. I made a statement in an email, I won't take no for an answer, because I'd put this information about the case up and I wanted to present the scientific evidence that supported my operating on this child. And they refused to have it as part of the meeting. When I was on the committee and the only meeting where I wasn't present, they decided to exclude anything but registrar papers. So they set me up not being able to be involved. So I said, hang on, I should be involved in this and I won't take no for an answer. That was all I was accused of. And I was threatened with the loss of my fellowship. The second episode was after the VCAT finding had suspended my registration. The college wrote to me and said, you're out. They would have known that I would have appealed and the Supreme Court said 13th chime of the crazy clock. Why couldn't the college say it was the 13th chime of the crazy clock and not subject me to the removal of my fellowship? The next was just recently. I've received a very large number of pages that have accused me of bullying because I've written correspondence complaining about people and complaining about outcomes. One of those letters was written in October of 2003 and sent to me this year as one of the notifications of complaint. I'd written to the College of Surgeons president. It gets funnier. The first one actually, the letter to the president was the first dated. This was the first in the folder. And it was a letter I wrote to Joanna Flynn with 5 pages of complaints about clinical performance and professionalism of colleagues. And it's the first letter in a dossier saying that I'm a bully. I've complained about bullying and now I'm being threatened with the loss of my fellowship for saying that other people are behaving inappropriately. So I know what this feels like, but this organisation has allowed me to do things like stand up here and bring you as a collective in to say this is not okay. I wrote to Joanna Flynn in 2011 informing her yet again that I'd been called a troublemaker by the medical board, by APRA. They're blaming the individual, coming back to the fundamental attribution error. I'm looking for solutions, and this is my submission to the Senate. We need to review and have culture change in relationship to hospital management, APRA, the Ombudsman, the tribunals, the Supreme Court, the Health Services Commissions, the medical indemnity organisations, and it's good that they're here today, the coronial process and the colleges. Until we get that cultural change and that sense of review of all these organisations, we're going to continue to go around in circles. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak.